Hello, good evening, and welcome back to another episode of Minds on Guard, where we are learning how to guard our minds against all of the things that would seek to control our thoughts, direct our behaviors, and ultimately manipulate us into behaving and thinking in ways that we did not decide to think for ourselves. We've been on a long journey so far. In the last couple of videos, we've been digging into a concept known as a topic known as think tanks. We've looked at what they are, some definitions, how they operate, the inner workings of what goes on in think tanks regarding like research and funding, as well as their purpose, which is ultimately influence and gaining power over groups and people so that they can further certain ideological agendas or direct public policy. In this video, we're going to pick back up on that discussion by taking a look at one such group whose real realm of influence and policy creating power has spanned for roughly a century, having connections to the most powerful governments and international regulating bodies. The Council on Foreign Relations. This group has had a role in shaping not just United States foreign policy, but really the entire world and how it operates. The level of influence wielded within this particular think tank is actually quite astounding. I've only been learning about it for a short amount of time. And what I've seen is that it's been present in some of the most major shifts throughout the 20th and into the 21st century. So let's take a look at this group and do a little thinking of our own to see if we can gain a better understanding of just what kind of influence and power is wielded when the right pieces are in place within a certain group. This will be a bit of a cursory glance, sort of a surface level dive. We're not going to go too deep, but it'll be good to get our feet wet with this group, and then that will hopefully spur on some more discussion later in following videos. First, what is the Council on Foreign Relations? When we set out to answer these kinds of questions, like digging into what are known as like definitions or first things, figuring out exactly what we're dealing with, it's always wise to look for any kind of source material that may come directly from the group that we're learning about or the topic that we're learning about, if there's any publications regarding that, the specifics of what it is that we're looking for. And this can help us understand just what it is that we're dealing with. Sometimes this may be difficult to find, like if there's a very scant amount of research or something that's a very fringe topic. But luckily, the Council has many publications that we're able to draw from. According to documents on CFR.org, the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR, is an independent, nonpartisan membership organization, think tank, and publisher dedicated to being a resource for its members, government officials, business executives, journalists, educators and students, civic and religious leaders, and other interested citizens in order to help them better understand the world and the foreign policy choices facing the United States and other countries. Founded in 1921, CFR carries out its mission by maintaining a diverse membership with special programs to promote interest and develop expertise in the next generation of foreign policy leaders, convening meetings at its headquarters in New York and in Washington, D.C., and other cities where senior government officials, members of Congress, global leaders, and prominent thinkers come together with council members to discuss and debate major international issues, supporting a studies program that fosters independent research, enabling CFR scholars to produce articles, reports, and books, and hold roundtables that analyze foreign policy issues and make concrete policy recommendations. Publishing Foreign Affairs, the preeminent journal of international affairs and U.S. foreign policy, sponsoring independent task forces that produce reports with both findings and policy prescriptions on the most important foreign policy topics, and providing up-to-date information and analysis about world events and American foreign policy on its website, cfr.org. Now, there's quite a lot in that, a lot of very interesting things contained in that description of what the Council of Foreign Relations is. One day we'll dig into a little bit of the nuance that's inside the language itself, but for now we can see that the CFR meets and qualifies all of the particulars of what we've been discussing regarding think tanks, specifically with respect to their structure as an organization and just what their aims and means of operations are. There are a few interesting things to make note of in this blurb about who they say they are. We see that they occupy a field of study in which they place their focus and they publish their research in a journal titled Foreign Affairs. So they have staked a claim on a certain area of society or of the way the world operates, and then they publish it in their own magazine or journal. Also, they make policy recommendations for the people and groups to whom they claim to be a resource. Now, bear in mind, these are all claims from within the organization. Also, they say that they are a, quote, nonpartisan membership organization, with members being people who work or reside in nearly every area of society. We saw students, teachers, religious members, government, Congress, all kinds of people make up this organization. This certainly points to the potential for a wide reach of influence, to be sure. Some questions that come to my mind that seem to be important to ask would be, how does anyone actually gain membership into this organization? Also, do they recruit? And if so, from where? Also, what are the specific duties of the members once they actually gain membership into this organization? Who gets to go to what meetings? What types of decisions are people making? What types of people are making those decisions? To that end, what kinds of hierarchical structure exists within this organization? How do they organize themselves? How do they delegate various tasks and research, and who writes, who does the research, who funds, who does all of what in the inner workings of this organization? In the same publication, we read, "The Council on Foreign Relations takes no institutional positions on policy issues and has no affiliation with the U.S. government. All views expressed in its publications and on its website are the sole responsibility of the author or authors," unquote. Now, I find this to be of specific importance given the amount of influence that it's held within this organization. For now, we should make note that they say that they are not affiliated in any way with the U.S. government, and remember that when it comes time to discuss the real power that is held within this organization. So, their own website gives us a good idea regarding what the CFR is. But what about its origins? When did this group form, and what were the driving forces that brought about its inception? According to InfluenceWatch.org, the Council on Foreign Relations was founded in 1921 by a small group of business and civic leaders after the U.S. Senate blocked President Woodrow Wilson's effort to have the United States join the League of Nations. The organization seeks to encourage sustained U.S. involvement in global affairs and was founded on the belief that the U.S. should embrace a leadership role and reject isolationism and support internationalism. It's important that we understand the historical context and sort of try to place ourselves in the minds of people at the time so that we can eventually track the progression of any movement or any group through its existence in our society. After World War I, the people of the United States were headed into like a societal mood of really just wanting to tend to our own affairs here at home and leave other countries to deal with what they needed to. This was known as sort of an American isolationism. The aftermath of global war and the brutality that took place was just too much for too many people, and they wished to remain responsible for what was theirs, and theirs alone. However, the leaders of the country at the time, specifically President Woodrow Wilson, had ideas and aims for a progressive future of international peace and prosperity. Wilson and those who thought like him saw the opportunity in a post-war world to establish a new paradigm in global operations between countries. When the administration failed to gain the support to join the League of Nations, which would actually be a precursor to the United Nations, members of Wilson's inner circle of advisors, as well as various influential businessmen, decided to meet in secret to form a group with the aim of engineering governmental policy so that the paradigm which they sought to establish could continue its development regardless of the will of the people at the time. Now, they would do this by gaining funding and support from the most wealthy members of American society and using those funds to begin publishing the journal titled Foreign Affairs, which within a few years had gained the reputation, either on its own or through backing and funding and propaganda, of being the, quote, most authoritative American review dealing with international affairs. So while the people of the country reeled from the destruction of war, a small group of opportunistic and wealthy individuals used the power and influence of their wealth to further their personal ideologies that were set against the will of the people. Just briefly, we should make note of some of the people who have either contributed funding to the CFR or have been at least stakeholders or influential in their policy direction. A short list includes the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Carnegie Corporation of New York, the Goldman Sachs Philanthropy Fund, and Bloomberg Philanthropies. Again, that is a very short list, but what does it say about the kinds of influence that is present within the CFR? Those groups have reputations, and we can track exactly what kinds of things they invest their money in and the things that they find important. Something I wish to bring up as a topic of significance is the fact that this group is made up of unelected and therefore unaccountable members who gain membership from recommendations within their own ranks. It is an exclusive club whose members are able to literally buy and sell power in order to publish their ideals and then draft and submit policies that become adopted at international levels. It is my opinion that groups like this are a danger to those who value their freedom to choose how they wish to live their lives. This channel is called Minds on Guard because I want us to be able to think and reason well for ourselves, not based on the whims and ideologies of people who would seek to usurp our own thinking capacities through their funding and power and influence that they hold, strictly based on wealth alone. The fact that these people are unelected places them outside of the checks and balances system that was established in our republic to help balance power at the highest levels. This has had disastrous results when it comes to the actual truth of where we are regarding freedom and liberty in the world today. We have seen and are living through the results of this kind of global power. Think of the monopolies of the world that run your day-to-day life, that you see on your phone or on TV. on the internet. At this point in time, it's my opinion that national governments are actually far less influential than the large think tanks and corporations developing the policy recommendations and the vast wealth that is behind the governments themselves. The model of wielding power to further ideologies, regardless of the will of those who will be affected, is alive and thriving in today's world, and the CFR was and continues to be one of the major groups that provided the soil in which this really truly disturbing imbalance of power has been able to take root and grow. So we'll dig a little bit more into the people involved in the CFR in the next video, and as well as sort of a prevailing ideology that has existed for a long time, that has gone by various names throughout the century, but there is a thread that connects it to the early 20th century, late 19th century, and all the way up into today. Until that next video, I hope you all stay safe, I hope you all check in on your loved ones, and I hope you all stay diligent and vigilant with your minds on guard.